Welcome to Tech Startup Stories, hosted by Natalie Binns. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the B2B startup world.
Hi, I'm Natalie Binns, and after many years as a marketing leader in the B2B SaaS industry, I set up Hey Gabby to support startups and scale-ups with their go-to-market and growth needs. I work with so many great founders, and that's led me to want to hear their stories and share them with others. And that's why I set up this podcast. So let's get into this week's podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. And this week I am back speaking with one of the best people that we had on season one. I really enjoyed our podcast when we last spoke, Ellie. And it was episode 22, which is over a year ago. And I can't believe how fast that year has gone. Great to have you back on the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be back and great to see you. And last year was a lot of fun and excited to do it again.
Brilliant. So for those of you that don't remember or haven't necessarily gone back to episode 22 of season one, here's a quick clip for what Ellie talked about in that last podcast.
My thinking has evolved. When I started my first few companies, it was very much like I want to build something great. And the way I define great is whether it got acquired or not. And over time, I've come to realize that the journey is probably the most fun part of it. And building a great company means building that journey, not just for yourself, but for lots of other people and getting to go through that journey together. And so much less focused on the outcome and the acquisition this time, and much more focused on building a great team and a great business and a great company and a great organization, and trying to do this for as long as I can. Because you're right, if I do sell this, I'm going to go start another one. And why sell it to start something else? Like, let me just build it the right way and build something that I want to be a part of for a very long time.
So it's been 12 months and a lot has happened in the world. A lot has happened in the industry. And we were talking very briefly about the speed of which the world is moving, and particularly your space. I'd love to hear from you at a kind of strategic level, how you would describe the last 12 months.
It's been a period of just exponential change, and the amount of things that are different today than they were last year is probably bigger than at any other point in my career. And I think the most profound one is just obviously AI, but specifically building software with AI. It went from you can build toys and like very MVP level stuff to you can build production level code with AI. It went from like you could have it help you with specific snippets to it can build entire features. And that changes pretty much everything. On the plus side, it's really great because it means that we can build faster and we can build better and we can do things that we would never have been able to justify. The flip side of it is so can everyone else. And that means that the question that a lot of companies are asking themselves is, do we build or buy software? And if we buy software, what software do we actually buy? And then on top of that, companies are also asking themselves an even more foundational question, which is like, in a world where I have ChatGPT or Claude, and I'm using that as my starting point for almost every piece of work that I do I really want to buy more apps? Do I really want to ask my team members to go into all these different places? How do I leverage the power of AI that my team is using and get them to like do stuff in there rather than try to like continue to bifurcate my stack to the point where like no one uses anything?
Yeah, it's been quite a year. And given that you're kind of in that space, and BackEngine, the foundation of the company is that you are an AI business. How have you managed to kind of separate yourselves out from such a busy market?
Yeah, I mean it's been a journey and an evolution, and I think I shared this analogy with you before, but we've kind of leaned into it. We've said, okay, well, AI is making us go faster, but it's making everyone kind of go faster, and that's creating a lot of change and volatility. And I think of that as like a very, very like windy canal. Like that's the market. And we are a very small startup, so we can fully lean into it because we can be very agile, and so we can push the pedal all the way down and know that we can maneuver that very windy canal. Whereas most of the other folks in the industry that are bigger than us, that have been here longer, that have more just baggage, can't quite move at that speed. So we've really leaned into how do we move as fast as humanly possible as one of our competitive advantages. And that's helped. And that's led to a bunch of like pretty big strategic decisions and bets that we've made that have been really interesting. And I don't think we would have been able to make them in another world.
I'm going to come back to that. First of all, I would love to hear you describe what BackEngine is all about for the listeners that either don't remember, haven't heard the first episode, or in fact, like many of the guests that we have on the show, there's been a pivot in what you do and how you describe yourselves to the market. So can you share with us what is BackEngine all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do at BackEngine is we ingest and take all of the customer related data that a company has. So think like product usage data and calls and support tickets and emails, everything, the entire corpus of data that a company has with its customers. And we basically create a brain out of it that's accessible in whatever AI platform they use. So if I go into Claude and I say, prep me for my meeting, it can hit the back engine brain, if you will, and say, oh, well, what meetings do you have? And what have you talked to them about? And what have you not talked to them about? And then if I'm a product leader and I want to go into ChatGPT and say something like, help me prioritize this list of features based on the amount of revenue it actually impacts and which customers have asked for it and what specifically they're trying to solve, ChatGPT can then ping the back engine brain and find all of that information and immediately come back. And so it's this brain that just makes the AI that companies are using so much more powerful and allows it to actually understand the context of the business. And that's a pretty big evolution from what we were doing when we talked last year. And part of the reason we've been going down this path is because we've been able to build a lot faster and we've been able to take on a technically much more complex challenge. But also it's because we've seen the market change and we think there's a much bigger opportunity to do this than what we were doing before.
Mm, mm. And you're no stranger to the startup world and building businesses. We talked about this in the first episode that this is not your first rodeo. In fact, I think you said it was number 4. And you talked about the fact that you're a lean team. You can move really fast. Is that by design? Is that because of being in the AI space and having the tools to hand to, do those things without having to hire big teams?
Yeah, I'd say it's partially by design and partially by necessity. So it is by design because I do believe that a startup's biggest advantage, we don't have more money, we don't have more distribution, we don't have more brand, we don't have anything more other than speed. And the only way you can get to speed is by being very, very like small and agile. And so that part is by design. And I think that mattered 10 years ago. I think it matters even more now. The by necessity is the world is changing really, really fast. And I find it very hard to make very large long-term bets in a world that's moving so fast. And so I'm trying to, by necessity, hold back on any major hires that don't feel absolutely essential until we can kind of see where things shake out and where we do want to double down and where we don't. So we're making lots of bets that are big but reversible, but we're trying to make fewer non-reversible bets because there's an element of speculation and guessing about where all of this goes, and I want to be very mindful, and I also want to make sure I have as much runway as needed to be able to finish this journey.
Absolutely. You talked earlier about, you've been very lucky. You've placed some strategic bets and they've played out well for you. Can you share a little bit more information on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talked last year, what we were effectively doing is we were building a voice of the customer system, if you will. Like we were ingesting calls and emails, a lot of like the back end of what we just talked about. But the purpose of that was to bring all of that data together into one centralized app, the BackEngine app, and then to give people a set of tools to be able to understand what their customers were saying and how they were saying it. And I mentioned earlier, a little bit earlier in the conversation, that I just don't think people want more apps. I just don't think they want another point solution where they go to do stuff. And a year ago, it like MCPs had just come out. There really wasn't much that you could do with them. Like it just there was no way to get all of this data into Claude or into ChatGPT. And so we had to build an app, and we had to build every interaction point had to be built. And that was very, very slow. And then all of a sudden I started to see companies adopting these AI tools faster and faster and faster. And it became pretty apparent to me that the experience would be dramatically better if we just took this whole brain that we had built that was powering a couple of little use cases in our app, and we just pointed it at Claude, ChatGPT. It immediately unlocked a ton of use cases for people. So it made the product way better, and the experience got way better because people were telling us that they were spending most of their time in these tools anyway. And so
Mm,
usage was, I thought, would skyrocket. And we started to get a whole bunch of our customers basically telling us that this is what they wanted from us, which was another really good proof point. And as I thought about the future, I thought to myself, like, what do I see becoming a bigger company? A company that's building infrastructure to power AI use cases, or a company that's building an AI app that's basically the standalone app? And it became very clear that across all the dimensions, moving really hard down this infrastructure path and powering this use case inside of Claude and ChatGPT and whatever AI tool people use um, was just better on every dimension. And so,
brilliant.
and just to finish the story, we basically made a huge bet. We killed our UI, we killed our app, we killed all of the front end stuff that we had been building. And we basically went all in on turning BackEngine into that invisible brain that just connects into the AI that you're using. We went to all of our customers, we transitioned them. We went to, we changed the entire way that we market. We had to build a whole bunch of additional functionality to make this infrastructure work. And, um, and that was a pretty big bet.
That's huge. Killing all of that, that is massive. I'm interested to hear, in terms of the people that were your, ideal customers 12 months ago when it was an app, when it had a UI, all of those things. Has that shifted since you've moved more towards this new model?
Yeah, so yes, but it's a recent pivot, so I can't tell you like, or a recent change, so I can't tell you exactly where it nets out. So far, what we're seeing is we're finding ourselves in conversation and signing up bigger companies. So
Hmm.
we're seeing a move towards larger enterprises where this is resonating more for bigger companies. We're also seeing the buyer change quite a bit, whereas before, because we had an app, a SaaS app, if you will, we were selling to like the CRO and the VP of CS and a whole bunch of like um, functional leaders, whereas now we're really selling to the person at the company that owns AI transformation, who is
Mm,
tasked by the board or the CEO to help figure out how the company needs to operate in this new AI world to move faster. And we're pitching them, and it's a much more holistic pitch. It's about the entire company. It's not about one function, basically using our tool to get faster. It's more about like, hey, you just bought these Claude licenses, you just bought these ChatGPT licenses, your team is using them, probably not moving the numbers that much, that dramatically yet. Here's some of the infrastructure you need to make that happen. And that really speaks to a top three pain that pretty much every company is dealing with, because I mean, every company has a board mandate to get more efficient with AI. Every CEO is feeling incredible amount of AI FOMO where they think everyone else has figured it out. They haven't. And so there we are, basically talking to them and showing them how much more they can get out of AI if they use BackEngine. And that's been a much more fun pitch also. It's a less crowded pitch. Um, but it's also, I mean, it's not all easy though, because that it's not it's a little bit like RevOps was maybe 5, 10 years ago, where like it's a new role. Not every company has it. People call it different things. Responsibilities are slightly different. So there's a lot of like consultative navigation that we have to do at every company to kind of figure out who actually is the persona. And it's not as easy as just going into LinkedIn Navigator and like, RevOps, give me the 10,000 people who work there, who work
mm,
in that position.
yeah, absolutely. Um, in the last 12 months, what has been the most challenging thing for you personally? What's been the hardest thing in the last 12 months?
There's been a lot of things that are hard. I think by like most most startup founders, very much myself included, tend to be okay with ambiguity, volatility, change. Like otherwise, it's a very hard thing to go become an entrepreneur if those are things that um, don't feel comfortable. And I've always been very comfortable with it. And I think every startup I've been at has gone through a journey that's been like fast changing and volatile and ambiguous, but never to the point of like what we've been dealing with this year. And I don't think it's just us. I think it's every company and especially every startup, to the point where like it's gotten uncomfortable for me. Like the pace of change has gotten to the point where it's just like it's a lot. And
Mm,
I think for the team, it's a lot. I think for all of us, it like feels overwhelming. It's almost like we go and invest in a new process, we invest in a new tool, and then 3 days later, something else comes out. Now we've got to go figure that out. And then Claude launches something and OpenAI and then and the other thing, so that's been one. The other thing is just the amount of hype out there, the amount of just like noise. And it's just hard to know what's real and what's not. And it just feels like it's hit a fever pitch where like there's just so much out there and knowing what's real and what isn't real is just so hard. And I think that impacts all of us, both in terms of like operationally how we're doing things and how we're building and how we're thinking about things, but also all of our customers and potential customers and like what they're dealing with, trying to figure out how to build themselves up and what their stack needs to look like.
absolutely. Totally understand that. It has been quite the year in that pace and keeping up with all that information and the speed of which things are changing, especially with the LLMs out there. So on the flip
Yeah.
side of that, what have been your joyous moments in the last 12 months? What has made you glow with delight, be happy? What's kind of been the best bits of the last 12 months?
It's two things for sure. The first is as a product builder, getting to see our vision come to life so quickly and at such a powerful level is incredibly delightful. I mean, anyone who's vibe coding and can see stuff come to life in minutes knows what I'm talking about. And to do it across a full engineer and see features that are just like we dream them up and we're like so excited and to watch them come to life so quickly is very empowering, very exciting. And the second thing is our customers delight when they play with it, when they see it, when they understand just the level of detail that we've gone through and thinking to make this thing just absolutely just like be the best and most incredible experience they've ever seen on a product like ours and all the things it uncovers and the feedback that we're getting from them. It's just a delight. It's just amazing. It's whether that translates into a massive business or not, I'm not sure yet, but those two things have been amazing.
Brilliant. If you could go back 12 months, is there anything you would change?
Yeah, I would have made the bet faster and sooner. Um,
Mm,
I also probably would have. One of the things that was interesting, this is going back to like the product building side. You know, we all like learn a way of doing things and we build processes around it. And like it's a proven way to like do things that have made us successful in the past. And then all of a sudden something like AI happens. And because it's been a little bit, I shouldn't say gradual because nothing about it has been gradual, but it's not like a year and a half ago you could basically like rethink your entire approach to product building and be done with it. Like it's just every day something new happens, something changes and you can do a little bit more. And so we've been trying to find the balance of like when do we like stop what we're doing, take time to rethink our process and basically relaunch it again and then and lock it until there's another big milestone that we can go and like a new model or some new infrastructure, so whatever. And I think we were a little bit slow to make that big change. I think November of last year is when the models got good enough and the infrastructure was there where you could make really, really substantial changes in how you deliver product. And we probably waited to like February to make like real wholesale changes. And I know 4 months doesn't sound like a lot, but given the step change that we've been able to unlock, I wish we had done it the moment we had the intuition that it was finally ready for us to make a big change like that. So
well, you made it in the end. So
did. We
onwards and
did.
upwards.
Exactly.
Obviously we can't change the past. I just was genuinely interested in that question. So moving forward, what do you hope to see happen in the business and with BackEngine, with the industry in the next 12 months?
Oh, that is a big question. I hope the hype calms down a little bit. I hope we like get off this hype train where we're all just trying to like showcase like demo use cases that don't actually translate, and where we're all just it feels a lot like everyone's an emperor without clothing, and we're all afraid to call out what AI is and what it isn't, and where it's strong and where it's weak. And I think there are places where it's genuinely becoming incredible. I think product development, like it took a while, but it is really, really good. There are other places where it's just like it's not actually moving things. And partially it's like people, partially it's like change management, partially it's infrastructure, but like there's no reason to give each other AI FOMO. Like we should just all be real with each other. And
Mm,
there's like real like challenges. And most of those challenges are actually, in my opinion, people challenges where like it's going to take time, and we're not going to get there if every CEO thinks that the they can get like 90% efficiency gains in 1 month by just deploying one piece of technology. Like you've got to invest in change management. That means like you have to hire people who can help rebuild processes and help people like with all the different things that need to happen, and who they can be thoughtful about these approaches. And until we do that, I think it's just jarring, and I don't know exactly what the word is, but almost disappointing is, I think, the way a
mm.
lot of people feel. Like get very excited using AI and seeing how great it is in like single player mode, and then you move into multiplayer mode and you try to actually make it do something as a team, and it's just disappointing. And uh, I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping both it gets better and also there's less pressure and FOMO.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I would love to speak to you again next year. Would you be happy to come back next year and share what's been going on?
Of course, Natalie, I'd love to. And thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
That's it for this episode of Tech Startup Stories. Have a story you'd like us to share, or a topic you'd want to cover? Reach out and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.